Hi, I'm with Stephen Chapman from Tolleson Union High School. We're here at the CUBE conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Nice to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a great event. And one of the things I thought you might do is to share with all the listeners kind of your background, because you've made a committed effort to participate in a lot of these programs and get the kind of certification and experience that you've had. So give me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. Stephen Chapman. I'm a school board member in Tolleson Union High School District since 2010. I got elected at the age of 22.
My gosh.
Which, it was an interesting cultural mix for me and some of the staff, but made it a little more interesting. Some of the folks that I used to call Mr. and Mrs. were kind of reversed, but didn't let the title go to my head in that way. Some of my teacher friends still kind of mockingly say Mr. Chapman, but it's all in fun. I'm also currently the immediate past president for the Arizona School Boards Association. I was on the executive committee there for 5 years. And I currently serve as a Pacific Region Director for the National School Boards Association.
Wow.
And I'm on my 4th term as a school board member starting this January.
And that's why I wanted you to give an introduction yourself, because of all that pedigree. Well, thanks for being here. And again, issueseducation.net is really about sharing expertise as a thought leader. So to have you on the program is really outstanding. So technology is probably first on the list, having one-to-one. So talk a little bit. What have you found have been the challenges, and what have you been able to accomplish?
Yeah, so for us in my district, we're at about 13,000 students right now. We saw a boost coming back to the school year, which is great. We are currently one-to-one with laptops. At the beginning of the school year, like last year, every student was issued a laptop. We have wireless all across the campus.
Wow.
And we also have 2 sets up, so for kids that bring their own devices, they can log in to the Wi-Fi on their phones, iPads, whatever device they bring, plus the laptop. And we've updated upgraded our broadband capacity to make sure that we can accommodate all the devices, 13,000 plus student devices, 2,000 staff devices. So it's quite nice. But it's easy, in a county and a city like mine, to have the campus set up, but we also have students who don't have that infrastructure at home.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we did at the beginning of the pandemic, well, we had devices before the pandemic. One of the things we did, seeing where the pandemic was going, is we started buying a ton of hotspots. And we also had some business partners that also helped chip in to give us some funding for those. So we were able to distribute hotspots to kids that did not have internet at home.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a lot of internet companies that were also providing affordable rates, but we also wanted to make sure that even for some parts of our community that couldn't afford those, that they had the hotspot at home so that they could do homeworks, or really not homework, but school, because we were on remote learning for so long. So the internet was vital, because if you didn't have the internet, you didn't have school, across the country in many school districts. And unfortunately, there were still rural and remote parts of Arizona and other parts of the state where they didn't have that kind of infrastructure, so they either had to go into campus or miss some of the time.
Have you had that in place long enough to get some data on some of the results, how it's impacted learning? Have you had the one-on-one? Because I know some kids, when they're at home, without teacher support, technology can be challenging.
Right. I mean, there are students who struggled. There are students who did well. There are students who, that kind of environment works for them. For my district, prior to the pandemic, we'd actually got an authorized online high school through the state. So we were kind of already geared towards allowing students to, do some of their or all of their high school career online with we had a live teacher, etc. And then the pandemic kicked in. We're like, now we got to launch it, district-wide essentially. Because initially we had, it wasn't a pilot, but we only had a few hundred kids set up for it, but then it became several thousand kids. So we definitely learned a lot during that process, and courses we needed, how to interact with the students, keep them engaged through the various Zooms and everything. So, but even beyond laptop and hotspot technology, some of the cool things, for me, just like music. So I'd been visiting schools, as soon as we kind of came back. one of the other things that we saw was, like for music, for example, is, and I've always wondered, like kids that play piano or some of these large instruments, like, it's not like a book you can put in your backpack and take home. Yeah. So unless a kid has that, how do they do it? Well, the pandemic, like with business in every district across the country, we had to start rethinking things. Well, they've existed for a while, these little, foldable piano things. So just, a lot of places hadn't thought to pick those up. But we had to order those because kids, were learning piano and things like that from home. But now we can transition to that, to where students can come in during school hours and learn their various instruments. And then there's some like that they can take home, check out. So now that some of these devices that we picked up thinking, like it was just to get us through the pandemic, are actually also going to become resources as we move on through the school year. So we talk about evolving in future-ready schools. Right. Is hopefully everyone has learned from this experience and has adapted whatever technology or methods that they used there that were good, and are able to translate that into the future.
That's outstanding. It really is. With many districts I've talked to, some are still struggling with that. So I hope those listeners will reach out to you that need some advice on that. Well, good. When we start looking at the kinds of programs that need to be offered, STEM really rises to the top. But there's a lot of varieties of what STEM means, and having partnerships is really important to kind of shape that program and support the program.
Correct.
With sometimes dollars, sometimes mentoring. So what have you been able to accomplish in the STEM program?
Yeah, we've continued to grow STEM. Most of them are considered career and technical education programs. So in Arizona, we have what are called CTED districts, career and technical education districts, that provide additional funding resources for students, as well as having centralized programs. Like, for example, the one we're a part of, like a school district in Arizona is not going to be able to afford an aviations program at an airport, but this district actually has one, so we can send kids there to get the same certifications through FAA for like $4,000 that would cost 20-something grand to go to a private college to do. So even some of those partnerships are very helpful. But some of our private partnerships with business have allowed us to create internship and career paths for students, so they can kind of get on-the-job experience while they're going to school, and help direct them in whatever post-secondary, whether it's college or jumping right into the career that they want to do, as well as being able to sit down with those business partners and say, here's some of the things that we're doing in culinary. Here's some of the things that we're doing in automotive mechanics. Is this where the industry is? Is this where the industry is heading? Give us your feedback, because these are the folks that are going to be working with you in the future. So most of the business community, is very friendly and ready to help, because they see that too. That if I don't help with this student, that's one less person I'm going to be able to have to help my company, or even starting other companies. So business partnerships are very important, and a lot of them do understand that, fortunately, and do reach out and work with local school districts.
Well, it takes today's kids who are very technology oriented to jump in on that. I think I'm surprised that program's not going to grow a lot in the future.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, so as a board member, it's everything you do in terms of setting the framework and the policies is critical for getting things done. And some boards have kind of a style of top-down management, and that doesn't often work very well. But I understand at your district, it's more of an engagement process of getting all the stakeholders involved, whether it's teachers, community. So share a little bit about what your expertise and experience has been there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a day one kind of thing for me. Back in 2010, I graduated from the district only a few years prior to getting on the board. So I still knew
I love that story, right? I really do.
The election process is
Mr. Chapman.
interesting. Yeah, right. The election process itself is also very interesting. If we have time, I'll run that one through you. But since then, because I knew a lot of folks in the district, so when I would get information from administration, I felt it was my due diligence to kind of check it out, hear from other people, and not even just in my school district. I'd reach out to colleagues and education friends that I had, across the state, just to kind of get thoughts, input, so that I can be better, make better decisions. Because whether you're 22 or 52, whatever the age is, there's still more to learn, there's still more to engage. You're not going to have all the right answers. The best thing you can do is get yourself as much information as possible to try to make the best decision you can for your community. So that's the way I've kind of operated. So I've always engaged with staff members from across the district, and one of the ways that I try to solidify that in our operation is I led the creation of a meet and confer process in our district. So we have educators, our classified staff, and administrators come to the table. So when we talk about pay, benefits, working conditions, things like that, everyone's at the table. It's not just something that administration's recommending or board is demanding. It's something that everyone has a part of the process in. And even as we moved along with the pandemic, a lot of our staff were able to provide input into various things. There's some things that we had to just kind of come up with a decision on. But we've, as best as possible, especially during this time, we've tried to make sure that everyone is as included as possible, because the best way to get buy-in is for someone to know what's going on and have even a voice in the process, even if you don't go that way. At least they were a part of it. It's easier to sell a decision on that when someone was in part of the room.
And to respect all views.
Well, right. And and for me, I'm not in the classroom every day, but that teacher is. So we want to hear from those teachers on what's going on. Or I'm not a site principal, so running those operations, I don't know all those things. So I need to hear from these folks. Our district administration needs to hear from these folks. So including them is critical. Not even just during the pandemic, but even in a normal year, it's critical to engage your staff, your students, your community members, whatever the decision is, whoever it reaches out to. If you're bringing in a new education platform, for example, whoever the end user is, or all the users are, if it's students, teachers, and administrators, those three groups need to be involved in kind of reviewing it, seeing how it works, playing with it, and providing those recommendations. Because at the end of the day, they're all the ones using it.
So you must have been a mature 22-year-old to bring those kinds of lessons to the board, because all of those are applicable, very much so. And community support is vital for them to understand what the real issues are and the priorities are, and to make school relevant once again for the students.
School districts, we need to work together as a team, for sure. And I think that's, when we have conferences like that, it kind of helps solidify that we're different districts, we're doing different things more often than not, with different communities, different resources, different political ideologies on the board and in the community. But with things like this, we're all allies, we're working together, we're all student focused, which I think is some of that's been lost with this pandemic as a student focus, not necessarily from school board members, but just in general, as we talk about anti-mask or mask, anti-vax or vax. A lot of the protests that are happening and holding up school board meetings. I mean, in Arizona, we've had school board members that essentially had to retreat back to district, inside the district office with unruly community members. And we had one where they set up like a mock school board meeting, elected their own. This can't become acceptable in any way, shape, or form. We live in a democracy, democratic republic, and we elect leaders to make decisions on our behalf. And if you don't like those decisions,
vote them out.
You can vote them out. In Arizona, we have even a recall process, and there's actually a bunch of those even been filed, across the state when folks are not happy with their school board members. We've had a legislator we've recalled, so there's ways to go about it, but some of this behavior, it's fine to come to a board meeting, have your open comment, say whatever you want to say, whether folks agree with it or not. But it's a whole other thing to disrupt a public meeting, to threaten school board members' lives, superintendents' lives, any public representatives who's just trying to do the work of the people. I don't agree with everyone. I don't think everybody agrees with me. That's fine. If we can work together, we can find great solutions. But right now, there's too much ideology in some of the basic decisions that didn't used to be as problematic for us. We politicized mass, we politicized students, we politicized CRT, which for me is interesting. Is like I've not seen a school district where CRT. I mean, if you go and look at like the true definition of what CRT is, you would probably realize that I don't know many school districts that would even be equipped to run a CRT program, let alone have been running one under the table without telling anybody. But we've got folks that are out there telling everyone that we're doing those things, and it's not factual. So even when I talk about school board member engagement, it's you have to engage with all parts of your community and try to educate them as best as possible. Show be as transparent as possible. You're not going to win everyone over, but we do have an obligation to show. Here's what we're doing. The stuff that someone's telling you we're doing, we're not doing. Or if we're making a decision on mask or no mask, we're trying to make what's best for our community. Like in Arizona, we had some districts who didn't issue a mask mandate, but they were in counties and communities that had like no spread at all. So it made sense for them. But there's communities like in my city and county where every district was red, or a lot of districts were red for so long that if you were in person, we had to make those decisions, and unfortunately we have some people that don't agree with that, and again, that's fine, but it's looking at the data and making the best decision for your community. If you don't like that, vote those folks out.
Well, this is a challenging time for all boards, and the political landscape is most difficult. So please reach out to Stephen Chapman if you have some questions or like to bounce some ideas off of him, because we're all in it together.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
No, appreciate your time. Thank you.